Hello and welcome to Wee Ood, a Doctor Who watch along podcast. I am Cameron. I'm here with my co-host Ben. How you doing today, Ben?
Eh, this drink is not doing it, Cam. I don't think I can drink this.
What is it, Ben?
I won some mojito flavored LaCroix, non-alcoholic, of course. And isn't it not? I put vodka in it. I don't think mojito is vodka, but it doesn't matter, I suppose. It probably does matter, but I can't do anything about it. Um, both of room temperature don't have ice cubes, so I stuck a orange popsicle, and it's not good. I
And the funny thing about this whole thing is that he had orange juice the whole time, and he could have just added
I
orange juice
did
to
not know I had
vodka.
orange juice, and I said, "Oh, mojito, that's an alcoholic drink. I should try that." This is not the way to try it, I don't think. But I want to get more into like mixology in just in general, I think.
That's not it, Ben.
I they should ban me.
I warned him. I warned him. I was like, don't do sparkling water because sparkling water is not going to be
I
good
don't
with
like hard
vodka.
seltzers. I don't know why I thought it would be good, but I
All
put
right.
a not insignificant amount of vodka in this, and I don't wanna waste it.
So you're gonna drink it?
Slowly, very slowly.
Okay.
Ugh,
Today's episode, we're going to be doing, if we can get through it, the Doctor Who episode, The
yes,
Mutants.
indeed.
Originally broadcast in April 8th through May 13th in 1972, the serial sees the Doctor and Joe receive a parcel from the Time Lords to be delivered via TARDIS to someone somewhere else in space and time. They find themselves in the 30th century on Solos, where the Solonian natives have been mutating into bug-like butts under the oppressive rule of overlords from the future Earth. Ben, in case you're curious, this episode was directed by Christopher Barry. Do you remember what he did last season, Ben?
I can't keep them all straight.
He did The Demons, and before that, he did a couple episodes of The Daleks and Power of the
Gotcha,
Daleks. This is his last story that he will do in Pertwee's run, not the last of the whole show, because he did not get along with John Pertwee. So John Pertwee was like, no, no, no more Christopher Barry. But he goes on to direct Robot and Freedom Morbius
gotcha.
for Tom Baker. Written by Bob Baker and Dave Martin. Do you remember what they did last season?
Like I said, I don't remember.
They did Claws of Access,
Ah,
and they will go on to do the Three Doctors of the Sontaran Experiment, and they will go on to be the co-creators of K9.
okay. I'm looking forward to the Three Doctors, so hopefully that's better than this.
So that will lead us into the next segment, which is Ben. What did you think of the
I
mutants?
mean, I thought it was gonna be way worse. Like, I had, like, rock bottom expectations, I would say. This does not sound interesting to me at all. The first even 3 episodes I thought were boring, but the latter 3 I thought were okay. Once kinda all the politic stuff is done-ish, and we start to learn more about, the history of Solos and, having a quirky professor character. Yeah, yeah, it gets better as it progresses, I think. Did that you share that?
I actually have a very opposite opinion of you. I I think we both share the opinion of this is not as bad as the general consensus leads you to believe. But I kind of enjoyed the first 3 or 4 episodes of this, and I thought that it was pretty good throughout. I just thought that around, I would say, episode 5 is when I was like, all right, episode 5 was a little bit repetitive and a little bit like, I don't think I really felt the pacing issues in episode 5. But episode 6, I thought picked that up again. So I pretty much, I would say, enjoyed the story throughout. I've already saw the
One of
mutants.
the few ones you've seen.
I own the mutants on DVD. They're only one of season 9 I've seen. And I got this DVD, Ben, because this was the first time I saw a classic Doctor Who DVD at a Best Buy. And I was like, "Oh my god, classic Doctor Who at a Best
Mhm.
Buy? I need to buy it." So I went and bought it. And well, not me, my mother did probably. And then I would have been it came out in 2011, so I would have been 10 years old, and I watched it. And I remember this was a I did not watch only a couple parts of this one. I remember I watched the full
Mhm.
thing for this. And I remembered enjoying it. But the only thing I had in my memory was, of course, the design of the mutants, and then they were just in caves a
I
lot
mean,
throughout the
only
story.
like 3 and 4.
Yeah. Now that I'm watching it now on a rewatch, I enjoyed, I would say, the colonization elements of it, and I enjoyed Paul Whitsun
Yeah, the
Jones,
Martian.
the Marshall character. I enjoyed his character throughout the majority of it. I thought he hammed it up.
Very.
Some people might say he hammed it up too much. I enjoy camp like that. I can't lie. So I enjoyed his
He was
performance.
definitely one of the best parts of the episode.
I thought that the idea of having this mutant race, not this but like having the initial core concept of what you believe is that these colonizers basically fuck the planet and fuck the inhabitants of this planet to be these mutant creatures. And then of course there's the twist reveal that they actually didn't do anything. This is what their
Yeah,
evolution is like
I think it's a pretty
on this
good
planet.
twist.
I would say it's a fine twist. It's kind of dumb.
I mean,
Like
sure, a lot of classic Doctor Who is dumb, but
Uh, fun fact, Ben, that idea is not a Bob Baker and Dave Monin idea. That's a Barry Letts idea. Barry Letts pitched that concept in season 4 of the show, but it was rejected.
huh,
And then he somehow came back, and he must have told the idea to Bob Baker and Dave Monin, and they enjoyed the idea of basically these human-like people. Then they kind of become like a butterfly, and then they become like these creatures, and then they become like these more powerful, like godlike creatures basically at the end of it, like a butterfly. Which like it's a fun idea. I don't know if it's a good idea, but it's a fun idea. That's how I would
yeah,
describe it.
becoming these like omniscient beings.
Yeah. And like the special effects, uh a sight to behold in that last moment when Kyle has his evolution. Or should I say no, it's Kai. Kai has that
Yeah,
evolution to becoming like the pride god
yeah.
because it's just the pride flag. It's just like a rainbow
I
effect,
thought the
which I thought that was a fun letterbox review for it.
yeah, I thought the special effects overall were pretty decent. They definitely made use several times of using the remind me of the name color
The
separation
CSO,
CSO
yeah,
to take a little set, have a very ambitious idea for a set, make a miniature of it, and then just have it put the actors in the miniature set via CSO,
yeah.
which worked well, I thought.
There's like the two big moments, which is the moment where the doctor and the professor are in the caves and they go to like the radioactive part of the caves to get
Mhm.
the crystal. And then there's the part in episode, I think it's either 4 or 5, where the ship explodes and the we see the Varen get like sucked into
Oh,
space,
yeah. That too.
which that effect actually kind of aged pretty well, I would say, for what it is.
I think there was another
um,
moment when they're like the investigator's ship is getting refueled and they're like crawling in the ship.
mm.
They like have just like a catwalk and then they use CSO to have it be like a big expansive thing around them, which made it work as a ship, I think.
But I think like one of the problems with this story, is the I think something that doesn't help the six Potter is the budget of the serial.
Mm,
Because it kinda the locations is kinda boring to look at for majority of it. It's either when we're down the caves and then we're down to, like, the boring, space sets. It's not like there's a lot for the human
yeah.
eye to
It's white
gravitate to,
walls and brown cave walls. That's kind of
with for some reason, multicolored
yeah.
lights sometimes. Um, so it's not like it gets kinda boring to look at, which I would, imagine why some people are bored by this story. Well, at least one of the factors why people are bored by the story is just, like, the sets aren't really something to write home about and not, like, visually expressive
Hmm.
at all.
Definitely.
So do you want to? I'll let you go through. You have two options, but do you want to either talk about the side characters or do you want to talk about the mutants?
Let's talk about the mutants.
So first off, let's go by like we were talking about design earlier. Let's talk about like what overall did you think of the design of the
Uh,
mutants?
Overall, I thought it was okay. They're just kind of bug-like, with like ridges on the back, pincers. Definitely better than like what they would have done 5 years ago in like the Web Planet. They look better than a Zarbi or something. But I think the costumes were pretty decent. There weren't really any moments where I'm like, "Oh, that's just like a guy." It felt believable as these hunched over creatures.
I will agree with that. That like they are, it's more believable than some other Doctor Who costumes in this era of classic Doctor Who. But it also it does not age at all in terms of like a fear
Oh
factor
yeah, they're not
ability.
scary at all.
They're not scary looking. They're kind of cute looking, to be honest. Like kind of adorable. Especially with like the way those eyes are like painted onto them. It looks kind of cute. But like, yeah, it's just a design that I don't think really ages that well. But I understand where you're coming from there. It's like, well, if you look at the shows, what they did previously, it is a big improvement. And like I guess that is fair to say that like what they would have done 6, 7 years ago, it's a big step up. But I think they did a better job, like even just last episode with the Sea
Oh yeah,
Devils.
Sea Devils looked way better. But I would say it looks better, more realistic than like the Silurians.
But I don't know, I think that I like the it's just for me, it's those eyes, like, it's very much like, I wish they did a better job with those eyes because the eyes just they look painted
So, I
on,
mean,
you know what I mean?
the Sea Devil's eyes were very much painted on too, but it kind of worked as like a dead
Like
fish kind of thing.
yeah, I would say that it worked for that, in my opinion. Yeah, but, like, I think that the design actually looks pretty good when we're in the caves, but when we are in, like, the overly lit, like, spaceship stuff, that's where it looks really
Yeah,
bad. But, yeah, like we talked about previously, the idea of them is interesting to have it be this
that's
evolution
definitely the most
of this
interesting
planet.
part of them as a
Don't
concept.
know why the Time Lords intervened.
It's a little silly. Like, I'd almost think, no, I guess the doctor had to be there for them to like figure it out and find the crystal and stuff.
I guess like my thing that was not even that. It's just like basically it makes more sense in like something like the colony in space where it's like, oh yeah, the master's after this
The
weapon.
master's screwing it
That's
up.
why the time
Yeah.
that's why the Time Lords are involved. Why is the Time Lords like they're not supposed to be involved in this type of shit? And like they're like, oh yeah, this the like so you don't well maybe we could write that like Salos is like a important
No,
planet.
you're right though. This is kind of going against their pre-established like non-interference. Like he's not going there to correct something that the master did. This is just like future humans are fucking things up,
Yeah.
and that's just what future humans do.
Yeah.
Why is the doctor getting involved?
That's a strong concept though for a beginning of a Doctor Who story. Just like fuck, the Time Lords gave us this. Time Lords gave us this mission. They gave us this ball. We now have to send this ball to the right person. I like that. I like that introduction of a Doctor Who story.
Sure, yeah.
But I don't
It
understand
works while
why.
he's still in exile as a reason to have the Time Lords let him, go outside.
But why they needed it to give them these fucking plates to find out like the what the evolution of this planet is. I don't really understand that fully, but
Yeah. I mean, couldn't the Time Lord from, like, Terra be like, "Oh, hey, doctor, just so you know, here's the deal. Can you go fix it?
yeah, you would
Doesn't need
think.
to be okay, here's a box. In this box is ancient stone tablets. I need you to bring them to, this random rebel native who's not gonna know what the hell to do with it, and you're gonna happen to come across the one human that can actually mostly read them, but even not really. And through that, you're gonna figure out what the deal is.
Honestly, it would make more sense for it to be the professor at the end of the day, that it's like, "Oh, the Thunder God opens the thing."
Yeah, why does he give it a Kai? Like, why did they say, "Oh, that doesn't make any sense."
The Time Lords act in mysterious ways, Ben.
I know. I don't know why I doubted them. They're lords after all.
But, like, no, I like that overall as, like, a concept for it, and I like the
This might
mutants.
just be the vodka talking, but this is starting to actually taste good to me.
Talking about the mutants, right?
Yeah.
And just talking about the Sol Solarians? Um,
Salonians.
Solonians, just talking about the Solonians in general. Like, I like the mixing of worlds, if you know what I mean. The old and the new,
Mhm.
of having this them be more this like this ancient medieval people, and then having the overseers, overlords be these future,
Yeah.
like, civilization. Like, I like that stuff. Even though of course it's not
Curse of
original.
Peladon did it better though.
Like, no, yeah, I can understand that. Yeah. But it's like I think it adds a little
Yeah,
flavor to it, the story. So what else is there talked about? Let's talk about, we get introduced by a couple of side characters
I'm
this
wrong.
episode.
This is not good.
Um we get the two of the overlords that help the doctor, the overlord
Yeah.
gods, Stubbs and Cotton.
Let's talk about
Um
Cotton real quick.
what what do you want to talk about then?
So we've had a very limited amount of people of color in this show.
Yes.
So the ones that I'm sure I'm forgetting some. The two that I can think of at the top of my head. Tomb of the Cybermen. Forget the guy's name, but he's like a Toberman.
Doberman.
He's like a servant brute kind of guy. Terror of the Autons. Don't know that guy's name either, but he's like a circus hand kind of brute. Doesn't speak. Um, I'm sure there must be
There's the person of color character that's very similar to Doberman in Evil the Daleks, remember?
Evil of the Dogs.
The one that Jamie
Oh,
fights and then they
yeah.
become
Who's
friends,
also
and it's
mute.
just Doberman again. Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why they think black people can't speak, but very a lot of people of color at this time are falling into that archetype. And Cotton is
Yeah.
not that. He's a intelligent man who is part of the plot.
And shout out, Stubbs is the one that
Poor
dies. So,
Stubbs.
like, Cotton even makes it through the whole
And
story, so
he
progress, Ben.
becomes the acting marshal. He's in a
Like,
position of power.
progress.
I mean, his name is Cotton. So, I mean, but it's
We don't
progress.
talk about that,
It's
Ben.
progress.
Um What was I gonna say? But yeah, like it is refreshing to see in classic Doctor Who a person of color that isn't, like you said, mute, and
A mute
actually
strong
is
man.
a
Yeah.
character. And then like Stubbs is another one that's like he's
Yeah.
fun.
He's likable.
Um and like I like that moment where he's like where the god is like trying to shoot at them. He's like, oh, it's just me, Stubbs, and then they kill him. Well, don't kill him, but they leave him in the cave, and the cave is like fucking falling in. So basically, like kill him.
Mhm.
Let's be honest here. That's what I was thinking that moment. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
But there's a moment they just bash a fucking god in the caves. I'm just like, oh,
Oh,
that
yeah,
kid,
yeah, I
that they
know what
just
you're talking
killed that
about.
guy. But yeah, the it's nice to see that like they have those characters that betray
Mhm.
to show that these like characters. It would be kind of stupid if these characters never portrayed the marshal, this obvious bad guy.
The most mustache
Um
twirling cartoonish villain.
and then Another one that we could talk about is the two main mutants that we see in the story. There is Varen and we see Kai.
Mhm.
What did you think of them, Ben?
Uh, I don't think I have as much to say about them. They work as kind of leaders of opposing factions for these natives. Kai is more rebellious, Varen as initially more subservient to the overlords.
I do love that moment with Varen where he goes back to his people and then had that moment he finds out that he's also mutated.
Oh, yeah.
I love that
And there's, like,
moment.
the voice that is, like, his instincts talking to him, saying,
Yeah.
Go to the caves, sleep now."
Like that was one of my favorite moments. And that scene works even better when you actually know what's going on throughout the whole thing. That he's fighting his natural instincts that he should be listening to, but he doesn't. But yeah, like I would say that they're both fine. They do the job. They do the job that they're supposed to do, but they're not like they're not characters that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna remember their names after we do this
Yeah.
podcast. Where there's gonna be some characters that we meet later on that's gonna be like, oh yeah, I'll always remember that side character's name. Um,
None of them are
and
worthy
then
for a
like
Big Finish spinoff, you think? Now
no,
Stubbs and Cotton.
no. Stubbs and Connor would be a good like buddy pair, but like it doesn't work because like Stubbs is dead. Unless Big that doesn't stop Big Finish. Big Finish
No.
can revive anyone back
I
from
could see them
death.
doing, like, a short trip about him, you know?
um so yeah, the we can now talk about let's talk about the Marshal. We talked about him briefly that like he gives a very hammy
Yes.
performance as the overlord of these people. What do you think of this the whole because it's pretty obvious that they're doing another colonization British imperialism story here, right?
Very obvious, yes.
Like not subtle at all.
They're gonna pull
What do you
out,
think
they're
of
gonna give them independence.
which of course is very similar to the apartheid in India in the British
When was
colony
that?
there. I think it was in the 1930s or
Uh,
40s. We're dumb Americans, people listening, so we
yeah.
apologize for not knowing this. So we can't comment on how this is a reflection of British imperialism that much because we're dumb Americans.
Yeah. I was listening
Uh,
to, the fellow podcasts you recommended to me, The Review of Death, and they're British. And they're able to say,
yes,
like, "Oh, yeah, there's, like, this is very much a Tory mindset," and they were able to comment more on, like, the political aspect of the one I was listening to was Ambassadors of Death, which is definitely a very political story, uh, which, as simple Americans, I think flew right over our heads.
yeah, because we just think this is a very apolitical story because we don't know the political climate of that time. But this one, of course, much more obvious. I think that it works more for the colonization aspects, but, like, it tries to also do the racism thing where they have the signs out in the
Oh,
teleporter
yeah,
room saying
segregation.
one is for the, Solarians and then one is for the Overlords, but I don't think that really works because we don't get much of that aspect apart from
No.
just the Marshal wants to kill them all, and, that's basically it. There's not a lot of, like basically, after part 1, there's no, like, talk to be had. It's just, "Alright, the Marshal wants to kill them, so we either have to stop the
He
Marshal or
is
they're gonna all
dead
die."
set on genocide. Will not give it up.
You know how you are. Um, but what did you think of, like, its statement on the not statement, but, like, it being a story about colonization, and how do you think it ranks in the other stories about colonization that we have seen so far?
Trying to think of what the other colonization stories we've
Well,
seen.
of course, Doctor Who and the
Yeah.
Silurians. And then, Colony in Space.
Yeah.
But do you think it adds something new to that conversation this episode, or do you think it is like repeated information?
I'd say there's probably something new that it's adding, but the only thing that's coming to mind is it's repeating a lot of those beats from the Silurians where, as the Doctor is championing, this is separate, unique civilization that, we don't fully understand. And there surely is a way that we can live in peace and harmony separately, but also, I don't know, separately and together.
I would say that like the big thing that this one does is just like it adds that we get the British side way more in this story with the overlords.
Yeah,
Like it's pretty obviously like that is the representation of Britain, which we don't really see in the we get a little bit of it, and like that's the unit, and that's just the humans in the Doctor and the Silurians. But with this one, it's much more clear. Like the overlords are the bad guys, aka Britain in in
mhm,
imperialism, which it was at this time not like a universal thing, even though that they were past it by this point. But like they were still like I was watching the behind the scenes for this, and like even Terrence Stick said like he was very much pro British imperialism, even in, like at this time. And so I think he said he still is. And then like, but you had somebody else on the team, like the two writers for this episode, and you had like Barry Letts, who was the producer, that was much more in the camp of imperialism is bad, which of course it is.
of
um,
course.
and I think like having that, adding that like environment, that at least the initial what you believe is having it be a stay this comment of we go to these new worlds, and then like we basically abuse the native lands and we pollute them. I think that is a worthwhile addition to that story.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the pollution aspect to it of kinda raping the
Like
land.
Silurians never say like I think it would have been interesting for the Silurians to say like what did you do to our lands? It used to be such lush and beautiful, and now it's all decayed and stuff. But
Yeah.
like I think that's a good element to add to the story. Um, But yeah, do you have any a little sidetracked, but any last thoughts to say about the Marshal, Ben?
Uh, good villain. Full stop.
Yeah, I had fun with him personally. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just this story overall. It has a lot of things in it that I think I enjoy, but maybe towards the like as a whole, it doesn't fully work. And I can understand why like some people are bored with this story because it's not like it's the most exciting story in the world. Like you said, even you said you were bored throughout the first half of it. Um,
Yeah.
which I was more bored at like once we get to like pot five, but like I already said. What were some like small moments in this episode that stood out to you, Ben?
I'm gonna have to think for a moment. I didn't make
God
notes
damn it,
for
Ben.
myself. Thought I could just wing it. I thought a funny moment was kinda echoing what happened at the end of the Curse of Peladon, the very end of this story. Uh, have the person from Earth say, uh, "Wait a minute, who are you?" Or I'm gonna need you to tell me who you are and what you're doing. And the doctor says, "Oh, Joe's feeling very faint. Let me step out for a second." And they flee off, and they say, "Doctor Who?"
Which is one of the rare moments in the classic show that they do actually say Doctor Who. Um, And then I loved in that moment
Rare
that,
moment.
when he breaks the door and the alarm goes off that, like, "Sector 4, door is open."
Oh yeah,
Like,
like it did
yeah,
in
I
the first
think
episode.
that's a nice little, like, bow a bow on that moment. A moment that stood out to me, Ben, it's one of the stupid, like, nitpicks of this episode, but there's a moment where the marshal uses a highlighter. I don't know if you spot it, Ben, but it's not like it's a space highlighter or anything. It's just a plain old normal like orange highlighter.
I missed that.
It's like it just stood out to me like, wait a minute, what the fuck? That's just a normal orange highlighter.
Oh, that does remind me, I forget which episode it is, but when the scientist is explaining to the doctor the plan, and he's like drawing in front of him, and the drawing, appears on the screen like it was green screened in. That was like an effect that was like, ooh, that's different.
And like some little things I loved in the story is that like having that the Earthlings can't breathe the air, having to use like those the the
Oxymasks.
oxymax. I think that's an interesting idea for a human planet. That's just like yeah, a humanoid planet is that like these humanoids look like us, but they breathe a different type of air. But then they're able to breathe our air, which is kind of contradictory. But hey, guess you gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, it's the same
Yeah.
air. It's just when the sun's out, there's something in the soil that releases a gas that uh that is poison to humans, but unaffected to the Solonians.
I guess evolution works works its ways. Um, all right. So before we move on to the cliffhanger segment, Ben, let's talk about the music this
Yeah.
episode. Uh, the music this episode, not done by Dudley Simpson. It's done by Tristan Carey. Tristan Carey is a who is Tristan Carey? Let me look it up because I already looked this up. He is a composer that worked for the show in the Daleks. He did. He also did the episode Marco Polo, Dalek Master Plan, The Gunfighters, and this is his last story he ever did for Doctor Who. So Ben, what did you think of the score of this episode?
It was fine. Uh, Unlike the last story, it didn't really stand out to me as much.
The word I would use would be unoffensive.
Yeah,
Like
that's
it's just
accurate.
there. You don't really notice it. You're not like there's no moment that you're like, oh yeah, there's the score. It's just kind of forgettable and just there. Doesn't really do anything to the overall story.
It
So
is there.
Tristram Carey, you're a OG, but the last one I can't write anything home about. Um, so Ben, do you have the cliffhangers written down, Ben?
I don't.
Okay, so I guess it's all me now. So the cliffhanger for pot one, Joe and Kai get shot down. It's a pretty uh cliffhanger. We got a lot of people pointing guns at people for cliffhangers in Doctor Who. So there's not a lot to talk about for that cliffhanger.
Yep.
Pot two, Varen has the doctor in like headlock with like with his sword and like kill him. Pot three, the gas is coming into the caves and they are trapped. I kind of like that cliffhanger, to be honest. That was probably my favorite cliffhanger of the lot. So now pot three. No, sorry, pot four. I just wrote down what the fuck is this cliffhanger? Because if you remember, that's the cliffhanger that Ryan gets sucked into outer space. I think then the group that is on board gets held at gunpoint, and then the missiles get thrown at down on the planet by the overlords. So
Mhm.
it's a lot of things happening in that cliffhanger. Do you have anything to talk about with that cliffhanger?
No, they're just hanging on for life, dear life.
A lot of things happen. It's kind of a lot of things that happen at once that, at least for me, I was like, "Whoa, what the fuck was that?" I didn't. They like. It's like, all right, what was the actual cliffhanger in that episode? Because they leave you off with a couple of moments of to leave you off on. Oh, I need to watch it next week. And then part five is that like they're in like the radiation room, if you remember that,
Yeah. About to
and then they're
be
gonna
exposed to deadly amounts of cesium radiation.
yeah. And then pot 6, like we already talked about, they're just like, "Oh, Doctor Who?" And then he just runs off. So, Ben, what was your favorite cliffhanger?
Probably 3. Episode 3 is probably the best. The gas closing in.
I think it works for, like especially we get that build up to it where they put the he tells Conan and Stubbs to go down in the caves, and then he's like, "Oh," he tells his other men to, "Oh, you gotta put the explosives there," and then he puts the timer down on the rocks. It's like I think it's a good build up to the cliffhanger of them revealing, "Oh my god, we're stuck and the gas is coming." Um, but yeah, so Ben, I think it's time now, unless you have anything else to say, to move on to the rankings.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it's not our rankings. I always fuck this up. So now the first thing we're gonna do is our rankings of this episode. What would you rate the mutants?
Maybe. Let's see. Did I like this more than Doctor Who and the Celery? No. Did I like this more than the Demon or Colony in Space? Yeah. I'll give it like a 6.9.
Okay. Me and you, we're on similar headspace. That like I think that we're gonna be talking about this just in a little bit, but I think people that think that Colony in Space is better is worse. I mean, Colony in Space is better than this. I think they're insane. I think this is much better than Colony in Space.
Yeah.
Um, my question is like, I think I rated Ambassadors of Death, and I think I rated Bastards of Death a little bit too low. I think 7. I think I would rate that a little bit higher in retrospect. And I think I
I
rated The
think
Mind of
that's
Evil a
just
little bit too high.
the folly of having going in order, not having as much of the context.
Yeah.
At this point, over just over halfway through, we have a better sense of what's a good story, what's a bad story.
Ooh, I'm gonna go because part of me is like I think that I like because I rated both a 7 to Ambassadors of Death and The Mind of Evil. But the problem with this one is that I don't think this is as good as Ambassadors of Death, but I think it's better than the the Mind of Evil.
Yeah.
So it's like I would put them in the middle in ranking
Well,
wise. So I guess
I
that just leaves me with
believe
rating it a 7.
at the Ambassador the Death was the last one where we did point 0.5 increments.
Yeah.
So you could bump up Ambassador to Death to like,
But we're not changing the ratings.
okay,
I'm not gonna be like that, Ben. I'm just gonna stick with it. I'm gonna give it another 7, Ben.
okay.
So basically we gave it the same score. You just liked it a little bit less.
Yeah,
Okay, so now when we go to the ranking, like we already talked about, Calling in Space for some reason is higher than this by only one spot though.
yeah.
So the Mutants ranked number 22 in 2023 and 2014, but ranked number 23 in 2009 and 1998. So we're gonna get to Monster Peladon, and then we're gonna find out if who was right, the 2009 and 1998 camp or the modern camp is more correct
Mhm.
in this ranking.
We'll see.
Do you think do you see why it's so low, Ben?
Yeah,
But you would still agree that Colony in Space is better than this. I mean, then it's worse than this.
yeah, definitely.
And
I
then
like they're not like night and day, but Mutants is better.
you like Claws more than you like the this more than Claws, which ranked number 19
Yeah.
in the poll.
I mean, when you're in like the bottom like 6 or 8, I think a lot of it is just like personal preference. Like, oh,
Oh
this
yeah.
kind of worked a little bit better for me. Yeah, this didn't really work for me. Just more minute things that are
I
gonna
just
bump it out.
I just think like with my what my rating said, like I think this is just like middle of the road Doctor Who. I don't think this is offensively bad Doctor Who, which I would consider would be in like the lower spots of a Doctor Who poll list. Which I think that kind of sums up a pretty good how consistent Pertwee's era is as
Yeah.
a whole.
If the bottom is okay, that's not bad.
So maybe next week, Ben, maybe Time Monster, we're gonna come back and be like, this wasn't as bad as we thought it was gonna be.
I watched the first 2 parts of the Time Monster
Don't tell
today.
me.
Okay.
Because then I'm not gonna watch it. And I'm gonna wait to watch it all in one go and it's gonna be bad. Just tell me, just say it's great.
It's easily beats out Inferno. No question.
Like, so, ladies and
Do you
gentlemen,
think they're diehard Time Monster fans that are like, I don't know what people are on. This is my favorite Doctor Who story of all time.
Probably. Like, we'll talk about it more next week, but,
Yes.
like, I would imagine there's
So
probably somebody out there that would say, like, "This story is a fucking mess, but I love it for it being so fucking bad." Like, it's a so bad it's good type of thing, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But we'll see that next week when we get the return of Barry Letts writing for the show.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna get the Demons reunion of the two of Robert Sloman, I think is the writer's name, with Barry Letts writing the next, and hopefully it's gonna be as good as the Demons been.
Hopefully. We'll
So join us
see.
next week for the Time Monster. Please remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. Please rate us any of the ratings on any of the podcast forums. There's a little Q&A section if you're listening on Spotify. Like, give us questions, give us like your feedback. Make sure to share the podcast. We have shorts on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram Rails. So please watch them there, share them.
Although maybe not TikTok forever.
Oh yeah, the
We'll
Joe
see.
Biden's gonna take away our TikTok, man.
Yeah. For we record these quite a ways in advance, and that is what's coming out right now. So we will
Well,
see.
it's been this has been in the works for like months.
But it is like it's official now. They have 9 months to sell or it's gone.
Joe Biden's not taking my TikTok away, Ben, if you know what I mean.
I mean, we are VPN users.
Yeah, but like I was
So,
more saying like a threat, but like because we're also Americans.
are you threatening the
No,
president
no, I would never.
in a live
I would never,
forum,
Ben. No, no.
plotting his
This is all a joke.
assassination?
Secret Service. This is all a joke.
I don't know if that's gonna work.
Peace out, everyone.
Have a great night. Or no, edit that out. Have a great day.
Peace.
Adios.